You aren't invisible because you're weak. You're invisible because you learn to be dangerous so quietly that no one can detect the threat. But let me be clear. Most of you read this wrong. You think invisibility is shyness, it's introversion, it's hiding in dark corners waiting for someone to notice you. Wrong. Psychological invisibility is a weapon of absolute power that exactly the smartest people on the planet are missing without realizing it. And even worse, they are losing while believing they are winning. You are being infiltrated right at this exact moment. Not by a dramatic enemy with a knife or a gun, but by someone who vanishes when things get tough and reappears when you've reached the top. That's the kind of predator that leaves no visible mark, leaves no obvious trail you can show to others. When you fail, when you face a real defeat, when your life is falling apart, they've already left your circle. When you triumph, when you've reached the peak and everybody wants to be close to you, they magically reappear with a memory of something they did for you once, as if that created an eternal debt. Most confuse this with genuine friendship. You are confusing predation with loyalty. These people only exist when you offer something of measurable value. When you face a genuine valley, when you're financially broke, emotionally ruined, when you really need someone to be there without expecting a return, they're simply gone. There's no drama, no direct confrontation, no honest conversation about the breakup, just absence. And when you recover, when you've rebuilt your status, they reappear as if they never left, with a fabricated story about how they were busy or solving their own problems. That is their camouflage. The invisibility they practice is the invisibility of convenience. The central question nobody is asking is this: how are the brightest people on the planet, people with genuine intelligence, becoming invisible not by conscious choice, but through brutal psychological incompetence? How does someone with intelligence that actually works allow their presence to disappear exactly when they needed to be noticed? How is someone who should be controlling the game being controlled by mediocre people who know how to operate these dynamics? And most important of all, how do you get that power back? How do you master this law without becoming an obvious sociopath that everyone recognizes and eliminates immediately? The historical answer was already given almost 2,000 years ago, but nobody is listening. Seneca was a man of absolute power in Rome. He had influence that penetrated the most important political structure of the ancient world. He had wealth that few mortals would ever reach. He had political access that put him close to supreme power. And one day, he was exiled, banished from Rome, removed from the whole system that had elevated him. But here is the detail nobody understands, because nobody is really observing. Seneca had already exiled himself psychologically long before being exiled geographically. While others desperately competed for attention from power, while others groveled politically to maintain their proximity to Nero, Seneca had already disappeared from need. He had died internally to the game everyone else was playing. When you die internally to something, you become invisible to that thing. You stop emitting the desperation that predators can smell from miles away. Seneca became invisible not because he hid, not because he became a hermit, but because he stopped depending on political recognition to validate his existence. He was a philosopher. His work was his identity, not his proximity to the emperor. And when he was finally removed from Rome, his mind was already so detached that Nero himself didn't know if he was exiling someone relevant or a philosopher who had stopped mattering. And that is what kills any predator. Anyone who tries to control you through presence or absence. When you become indifferent to the power they believe they have over you. Now take this historical dynamic and put it into your modern life, in your neighborhood, in your work group, on your social media, in your romantic relationships. You are being watched at this exact moment by people who disappear when you need them most. People who only see you when you're shining, when you're at your peak, when you're on the rise, when you can offer something of value that they can extract and claim for themselves. When you face a real failure, a genuine flaw for which you are responsible, a human defeat that cannot be made up or hidden, these people simply vanish. They leave your circle with a frightening gracefulness. And while you wait for them to reappear out of loyalty, basic decency, anything that resembles reciprocity, they are already operating somewhere else, with someone else who is shining right now, who is at the peak, who can offer something. You will remain too visible, too weak, waiting too long. But them? They are already invisible to you. And here is what nobody says, because nobody wants to face this truth. You are doing the exact same thing in reverse. You are being invisible when you should be expanding your genuine presence. You are camouflaging yourself psychologically when you should be leaving an authentic mark. And these people are literally stealing your visibility, your energy, your emotional availability while you sleep, while you question yourself if you were unfair to think they disappeared, while you try to be the right person in a game where nobody else is trying any of that. There is a biological and psychological law that governs all this, and that most are completely unaware of. Your nervous system is a pattern detector. It is constantly looking for signs of safety and threat. When someone disappears from your life at a critical moment, your nervous system registers this as a threat. Not an immediate physical threat, but a threat of abandonment, of rejection. Your body releases cortisol. Your mind starts looking for explanations to make it feel better. You find excuses for the person. You rationalize their behavior. You invent stories that make them look innocent. And while you do this, while your nervous system is busy processing the abandonment, these people are becoming increasingly invisible to you, while you become increasingly visible to them as an easy target. The most imposing and majestic tree you see on the horizon, the one that dominates the landscape, that makes you feel small when you pass beneath it, might be completely rotten inside. The growth rings look healthy when you observe the structure up close. The bark looks lush and strong. There are green leaves at the top that indicate vigorous life. But inside, in the marrow, there is only emptiness and silent decomposition. You press your hand hard, and it disintegrates into gray dust blowing in the wind. That is the psychological structure of someone who built a reputation of constant presence, of friendship, of apparent loyalty, while disappearing psychologically in all critical moments. They seem like friends when you are winning. They seem loyal when your success reflects on them too. They seem to be there for you when your company is convenient. But when you test the structure with real pressure, when you really need someone to be by your side expecting no return, there is nothing inside. Just air where there should be solidity. Just empty promises where there should be bone and marrow. And you? Are you growing like a healthy tree with deep roots that penetrate the soil and find water even in droughts? Or like that tree that looks lush on the surface while rotting silently inside? Because what I'm observing clinically is this: you are letting your visibility disappear in places where it should be strongest. In your genuine vulnerabilities, in your transition periods when you don't know who you are anymore, in your moments of genuine uncertainty when you need honest advice, not false certainties. It's exactly in those times that predators get full access to you. When you are weak, when you are transparent, when you are desperate and looking for anything that looks like salvation, they see everything. They map your weaknesses with clinical precision. They document your deepest fears. They watch exactly where you break. They store this information. And when you are strong again, when you have rebuilt, when you no longer need them, they disappear from your sight. The law of psychological camouflage has two sides you need to understand at the deepest level of your psyche. The first side is to recognize, truly recognize, how the invisible predator operates in your environment. He is not the one who screams, who explicitly threatens, who confronts in a dramatic and obvious way. That type is easy to detect and eliminate. You see him coming from miles away. The invisible predator is the one who seems to be always present in your spaces, always supporting, always showing up when there's something to gain. At your peak, he is in every network of yours, included in every important conversation, present in every moment of success where your light reflects on him too. In your valley, in your defeat, when you really need him, when you need someone to see you as a complete human being and not as an asset to be exploited, he is on another continent. This is not paranoia. This is a clinical observation of predatory behavior patterns that repeat with mathematical precision. Seneca understood something most smart people will never truly understand, even if they read books about him. Real invisibility is not disappearing from the map. It's not hiding or isolating yourself in an obvious way like a hermit. It's not stopping existing socially. It is disappearing from need. It is to stop needing. When you stop needing constant validation, when you stop needing the approval of people who clearly disappear when you fall, when you stop needing constantly confirmed presence to feel alive, you become invisible in a totally different and radically more powerful way. You become invisible because no one can control you through presence or absence anymore. Their presence ceases to matter. Their absence stops hurting. No one can touch you anymore because you are not begging for touch. You are not looking for validation in every interaction. So how do you do this in practice, on a daily basis, when you are surrounded by people who disappear? First, you do a brutal audit of your own invisibility. You identify where you are being visible in the wrong way, in a harmful way. Are you exposing your deepest wounds to people who notoriously disappear when you bleed? Are you seeking emotional validation in relationships that are clearly opportunistic, that only exist when you offer something of tangible value? Are you letting your moments of genuine vulnerability be seen by people who clearly disappear when you no longer shine the way you did? This is the most important audit you will do this week, more important than any career planning or business strategy. It's not about what you are saying publicly on social media. It's about what you are letting be seen privately, in the moments when nobody else is watching. It's about who has access to your weakness, your despair, your desire to belong. Second, you viscerally understand that real camouflage is radical detachment. It's not that you stop caring about the results of your endeavors. It's not that you stop fighting for your goals. It's that you stop depending on the specific outcome to validate your existence. You are building something that truly matters. You dedicate your energy, your intelligence, your time to it. Someone you thought was a partner disappears from your side. You keep going. Does your heart hurt? Yes. But you keep going because your work doesn't depend on the presence of a specific person. Someone shows up with bright promises of partnership, of collaboration, of support. You don't even lift your eyes from what you were building. You assimilate their presence without letting them distract you. That is the clinical, observable, and measurable difference between someone who is being invisible out of weakness and someone who is being invisible out of power. One is invisible because nobody sees him and he desperately wants to be seen, wants validation. The other is invisible because he is on an entirely different plane, because his existence does not depend on the recognition of others. Third, you start practicing the tactical recalibration of your relationships. When someone disappears at a critical moment, you document it internally. Not in a dramatic or vindictive way. You don't have to do anything. You just know, deep down, absolutely, exactly who this person is. It's someone who only exists when you offer something. It's a person whose loyalty is conditional on your status. You start treating this person exactly as such, as a temporary resource, as a tactical ally whose interests only align with yours in certain specific circumstances. And when those circumstances change, when your status changes, when your interests diverge, you don't need drama. You don't need confrontation. You don't need explanations. You just stop being available. You become invisible to that person, the same way they became invisible to you when you fell. And that is not cruelty. That is justice. That is balance. But here is the mirror that will make you uncomfortable at the deepest level, at the level you don't want to confront. Are you doing this too? Are you disappearing from people who genuinely need you, who chose you when you were broken because they dropped in status? Are you showing up only when there is something tangible to gain, when there is visibility to be extracted, when there is value to be captured? Are you camouflaging yourself psychologically, not as a smart and strategic choice based on values, but as a pure survival reflex? The same reflex every mediocre predator has. If the answer is yes, and honestly most will say it is, then you are not a victim of this game. You are a player who doesn't know he's playing. And that is much more dangerous than being a victim, because victims can be protected. Unconscious players destroy everything around them without realizing it, including themselves. The reason why most cannot become truly invisible in a competent way, the reason why you continue to be manipulated by people who disappear, is because you confuse invisibility with non-existence. You think being invisible means stopping existing, stopping trying, stopping participating. Wrong. You need to be present, but not available. You need to be seen, but not dependent. You need to be integrated into the social and professional system, participating fully, contributing genuinely, but not emotionally glued to it, not desperate for its validation. That is real psychological camouflage. That is what separates someone who is pretending to be okay who is silently screaming for help, from someone who is genuinely okay because they don't need anything that others can take away. Seneca was in Rome, but he was not of Rome. He participated in politics, had real influence, helped shape decisions, but he was not of politics. His identity was not tied to political recognition. He didn't live and die by Nero's approval. He was alive, he breathed, he acted in his time, but he had already died internally to what most value above all: temporal power, social status, proximity to the emperor. When Nero finally found him and decided to exile him, when he decided Seneca had become a threat, Seneca was so prepared for the end, so detached psychologically, that fear had already completely left his body. He knew exile was coming. He accepted it. Because his work, his writings, his thoughts didn't depend on being in Rome. That is the invisibility that matters. Not because nobody sees you, but because you don't need to be seen to exist fully. Now here is the part that will make you uncomfortable at the deepest level, that will touch your most primitive fears. If you want to operate this law genuinely, if you want to become truly invisible and maintain power while disappearing psychologically, you must be willing to accept that most of your current connections are fundamentally parasitic. Not because people are inherently bad, not because there's a conspiracy against you, but because the system encourages it. The system rewards extraction. You offer something, they get closer. You stop offering, they disappear. And while you wait for them to reappear out of loyalty, out of real friendship, out of basic decency, out of anything that resembles genuine reciprocity, they're already operating somewhere else, with someone else who is shining right now, who is at the peak, who can offer something fresh and interesting. You will remain too visible, too weak, waiting too long. They will remain invisible to you. The law of psychological camouflage has a brutal price that few are willing to pay. The price is radical detachment. The price is being willing to remain invisible to the majority while you build something genuinely real. The price is knowing that the friendships you cultivate today, that you invest time and emotion in, most of them will evaporate when you change phases, when you stop shining the way you shine now, when you are no longer useful the way you were useful before. And that's okay. Because when you finally truly understand this, when you accept it at the deepest level of your consciousness, you stop investing emotionally in people who only invest in you when you are at your peak. You stop expecting loyalty from people who clearly don't know what loyalty means. The final question is simple, sharp, and inescapable. Are you going to keep allowing people who disappear when you fall to continue operating freely in your life? Continuing to extract your energy, your patience, your hope, while you remain weak and visible in the wrong places? Or are you going to become truly invisible, detached, undetectable in your genuine indifference, and start playing this game competently? Because if you keep doing what you are doing now, you will continue to be exactly what you are. Too visible in the wrong places, expecting loyalty from people who only exist when you shine. Too invisible in the places that matter for your real growth. Most won't withstand this truth. Most will read this, feel the discomfort, recognize parts of themselves in the mirror being held up, and go back to their lives. They will surround themselves again with people who disappear when they fail, expecting validation from people who only exist when they triumph. Most will prefer the comfortable illusion that these people are genuine friends, that real reciprocity exists somewhere, that loyalty exists when you can no longer offer anything. But you are not the majority. You are here, reading this, to the end, because somewhere very deep, you already knew the game was like this. You had already seen the rotten tree inside. You had already noticed the pattern when people disappeared. You had already felt the abandonment, even if you never named it with such clinical precision. You recognize the truth when you see it. So here is my final challenge, my last word before you make a decision. If you really want to master the law of psychological camouflage, if you want to become competently invisible in a world of obvious parasites who don't know how to operate, if you want to stop being controlled and manipulated by people who disappear when you need them, you are going to sign up for Mr. Nan. Not because I'm going to motivate you with empty platitudes and social media inspirations that nobody follows for more than 2 weeks, but because I will give you the exact tools, the proven strategies, to operate in absolute coldness, to build relationships based on real reciprocity and clinical observation. If you can't stand the naked, raw truth, if you prefer to keep the comfortable illusion that keeps you safe and predictable, the door is open and always will be. But if you want to play for real, if you want to finally understand why you are invisible in the places that matter, and too visible in the places that slowly destroy you, then stay. Sign up. Because what comes next will dismantle everything you believe about loyalty, friendship, and belonging. And you will love every second of it.